Now it begins.
No.
Now it ends.
What's on the box? Hi, I'm James.
And I'm James.
And I'm Chelsea.
And this is What's on the Box, where we discuss the latest episode of your favorite TV show.
Continuing the streak that began last week, another really great episode of Game of Thrones.
And also continuing the streak, just so many plots. So many plots. Have there always been this many plots in an episode?
Yeah, but I think that like last week, a lot of the plot that we got was very character-driven instead of just propelling the plot forward.
The episode title is Oathbreaker, and that can apply to lots of characters here. Who do you want to talk about first?
We gotta talk about Tower of Joy.
Tower of Joy.
It was awesome, right? Yeah.
This is a scene that fans have been looking forward to for years. I wasn't sure if we'd ever get it on the show.
I couldn't figure out a way that they would be able to show us on the show. Through Bran and the Three-Eyed Raven, we were able to go back in time.
Yes, these scenes are from the very first book, Game of Thrones, and they take place in Ned's memories and dreams.
It's a really important battle within the history of Westeros, and it's also important because every single person in that flashback is dead except
Howland Reed.
And it was so exciting to get to see him.
Even though he didn't say a single thing?
He didn't. And just to clarify, Howland Reed, the guy who stabbed Arthur Dayne in the back, is the father of Mira and Jojen.
The late Jojen. From the moment that scene began, all of us were very excited. We get some really excellent dialogue. The intensity between Ned and Sir Arthur Dayne, it was phenomenal. It was great.
I think it's important to note that those Kingsguard members were not protecting the king, Mad Ares, or the Prince Rhaegar.
Rhaegar's dead at this point.
Rhaegar has been killed at the Trident, but they weren't there at the Trident with Prince Rhaegar.
I looked for you on the Trident.
We weren't there.
That begs the question, what are they protecting?
Yes, what is in that tower? As all of us wanted to know so bad.
Yeah, when Bran got yanked out, we were all him. He was our audience surrogate.
So I have a question. It seems like it's a big deal when Howland Reed stabs Arthur Dayne in the back, but they're in a sword fight. That seems fair to me.
What makes it interesting is that Howland kills Arthur Dayne the same way that Jaime kills Aerys.
As great of a character as Ned is, I think one of his biggest flaws is how unforgiving he is of Jaime. I realize that Jaime broke a vow, but he was doing it to kill a horrible guy. Like, if one of Hitler's bodyguards killed Hitler, would you blame the bodyguard?
No.
But Ned just never forgives Jaime despite the fact that he killed the guy who killed Ned's brother and father.
But I think the manner in which he did it is what's important there. And I think that's the same thing with the way in which Howland kills Sir Arthur. Ned has a huge amount of reverence for Sir Arthur Dayne. He's the Sword of the Morning, he's this legendary knight, and we can see why. I mean, the choreography in that fight was amazing. I think you can see on his face in that moment that he's disappointed with the outcome of this fight, knowing that Ned's tragic flaw is his sense of honor. Ned was ready to lose to Sir Arthur Dayne in that moment. For him to win in that dishonorable way, he doesn't know how to deal with, and I think it's something that haunts him.
Also, Bran calls out to him and he hears him, maybe.
I thought that Bran was gonna realize that Ned was gonna lose and affect the outcome of the fight somehow, and I was really afraid we were gonna have that precedent set, and I'm really glad it didn't. And I'm glad right after that scene ended, Three-Eyed Crow said,
The past is already written. The ink is dry.
But what do you think about Ned hearing Bran then?
Maybe the Three-Eyed Raven is wrong. Maybe Bran has abilities beyond his.
I will say that if it starts going in that direction, it might be a little too sci-fi for me.
on top of everything else that's going on in this story, I don't think we need that.
Speaking of sci-fi and magic and stuff, Jon's back from the fucking dead.
All of these people suddenly have to deal with the fact that somebody they knew to be dead with a certainty is now not dead.
And Ed asks Jon if it's still him in there, and Jon says, I think so. But we know from Beric Dondarrion being brought back in his conversation with Arya and Thoros of Myr that every time he comes back,
I'm a bit less.
so I'm wondering if that's the case with Jon.
When he hands his cloak over to Ed and leaves the Night's Watch, I think that part of him, that honorable sense of duty that he felt before, is gone. Yes, he's out of his vow technically because his watch has ended, he died. But that's a technicality, and I think that the Jon from before wouldn't have given up on his oath to the Night's Watch as easily.
I think Jon is gonna think about Stannis trying to make him Lord Stark.
Kneel before me, and you'll rise again as Jon Stark.
And give him Winterfell.
Yeah. Oh, the hanging scene.
The hanging scene at the wall.
Ollie and Alistair are dead. That's it.
Yay!
We saw their lifeless corpses hanging there. Powerful moment.
Jon having to carry out that sentence was very powerful.
His last act as Lord Commander. I do think Jon pauses for a moment though, because he has to be thinking about the fact that he's sending these guys into the same oblivion that he just came out of and told Nell about.
Nothing. There was nothing at all.
I really liked the exchange between him and Sir Alistair. I thought that that was a moment of respect for Sir Alistair, and he held his head high as he went to the gallows.
That speech gave me some more insight into Alistair's conviction.
The fact that he said he would do it again if he had the chance was not redemptive, but it was respectful. And Ollie burning with rage to the bitter end.
Making the same face, the only face he knows how to make.
Worst character in the history of the show?
Sand snakes.
Sand snakes? I don't know.
I do.
Ollie, come beyond what's on the box. You got free time now.
I really loved that scene too, where he hands the reins, as it were, over to Ed. It echoed his order to him in Watchers on the Wall when he says, "You have the wall, now he has Castle Black." He knows that he is not the right person to lead the Night's Watch anymore. Tormund and the Wildlings and the North as a whole need him to lead. It's something that I think Davos mentions. Focus your energy somewhere. Be the man that is worth bringing back.
Jon knows that the Boltons have Winterfell.
He's gonna find out that they have Rickon.
Yeah, the Umbers give Rickon over to Ramsay.
Yeah, the Great Northern Conspiracy is looking less and less likely.
I think we are gonna get Great Northern Conspiracy. I don't think that direwolf Shaggy Dog.
I hope not. I'm sick of direwolves dying.
I think that the timing is strange for the Umbers to suddenly turn their cloak to Bolton. Clearly the small Jon doesn't think much of the Boltons or the Karstarks. For him to suddenly be like, well, Roose is dead, so now path clear to support Ramsay?
I see that as more path clear to destroy the Boltons from within.
Osha and Rickon went to Last Hearth, the seat of the
right.
Umbers, and they've been there presumably since.
They were with the Umbers this entire time.
This whole time.
How many seasons were they with the Umbers? That's so much time. That's enough time to formulate all this shit. Why would the Umbers give Ramsay some random wildling if she's not part of some plan? Why wouldn't they just give him Rickon?
Why wouldn't they have just killed Osha?
Who we know is a spear wife.
Right, we know she kicks ass.
Yeah.
Why are they planting her in Winterfell?
Okay,
Yeah.
that convinces me.
And this is small Jon Umber. This is the Great Jon's son. The Great Jon was one of Robb's staunchest supporters
After getting his fingers bitten off by Grey Wind.
and declaring Robb king in the North.
King of the North!
I really think this is gonna be an inside job and it's gonna be awesome.
I hope. But what is Ramsay gonna do to Rick? Like, how are they gonna keep Rickon safe?
It reminds me of when Littlefinger gave Sansa to Ramsay, and that clearly didn't keep her safe. Marine, any Oathbreakers there?
I think you can argue that the Harpy insider lady was an oathbreaker. She conspired against the queen, and now she's gonna give up who's in charge of the Sons of the Harpy and who's financing them.
And that's the good masters of Astapor, the wise masters of Yunkai, and Volantis.
That's not that exciting of a reveal for me.
No.
Like, of course, it's the other slaving cities.
But I do like how that scene revealed how Varys does his work. That was the most openly threatening I think we've ever seen Varys. The most real we've seen Varys was when he was talking to Ned at the end of season 1 and just telling him, yes, I could save you, but I won't because it wouldn't do me any good. And here I like seeing him in action, getting information out of people, not with torture, but with subtle threats
And kindness.
and some kindness. He does give her a bag of silver, presumably, assuming he followed through on the promise.
I think he follows through on his promise because we later see his former little birds in King's Landing, and I think they miss Varys. And they say something how he gives them candy. I think he's nice to them and treats them well.
I think that they miss Varys. They ask about him when they're dealing with Qyburn.
Qyburn, who has inherited the little spies, apparently, since Cersei named him Master of Whispers last season.
The worst team of babysitters ever. Babysitters Club Westeros.
Say hello to your friends. Babysitter's Club.
And that's with confirmation that that is Sir Gregor, the first time the show has confirmed it.
Guys, we're gonna get Clegane Bowl.
Clegane Bowl.
Clegane Bowl is the idea that Sandor and Gregor will fight each other because Cersei says she's going to have a trial by combat. And she says Sir Gregor will be her champion. So all that leaves is the Faith having a champion to fight Sir Gregor.
We have a lot of pipe to lay to get there.
Yeah,
still.
but I think that this episode was the first junction in that
Yes.
pipe. Not only did we get the explicit mention of Gregor Clegane by name,
This is Sir Gregor.
but we got a mention of the Hound by name and what happened to him in the scene with the waif and Arya.
Tell me about the Hound.
Arya Stark left him to die.
And we also get a line from Jaime.
That is one trial by combat I look forward to watching.
I think maybe that was a not so subtle nod to everyone looking forward to Clegane Bowl.
So we really jumped around there.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. We got hype. Do we want to go back to Marine about Tyrion's scene?
Tyrion tries bonding, passing time with Missandei and Grey Worm.
I wasn't a huge fan of the scene.
I kind of liked it just because I think it's interesting to see Tyrion try to interact with the two people who have never ever been allowed to have fun in their entire lives. And that's such a crazy, weird concept for him.
That's a great point.
Just the idea of them not getting that you can just hang out, and then him kind of being blown away that these two people have just been programmed to be subservient and have never been allowed to have conversations or interests or fun.
Especially when you compare them to the people that Tyrion usually keeps company with. He even tries to play the same drinking game that he did with Bronn and Shay, but it doesn't work out.
I think that's a great point. Sure.
I'm sold.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Across Essos, we have Dany going to Vaes Dothrak. She's been there before, back when her brother earned his crown of gold.
I wonder if we're gonna get some flashbacky type prophecy stuff in Vaes Dothrak, because a widowed Khaleesi was the person who gave the stallion that will mount the world prophecy, so we can assume that they use magic in some capacity. And I'm wondering if that's gonna be another way to get to the stuff involving Rhaegar and Tower of Joy from another angle, bringing Jon and Dany closer together. I just want Dany to be more interesting.
I even thought the House of Black and White stuff was more interesting than Dany.
Because even though the Arya scene felt like every Arya scene we've ever seen, the training montage and slowly advancing, Dany is straight up going backwards.
I'm skeptical of what the show is going to do with Daenerys when throughout its run, I think it's underserved the character.
But she is another Oathbreaker, not going back to Dosh Khaleen after her Khal died.
That's true. Another Oathbreaker is Sam. He's kind of breaking his Night's Watch oath, not only because they slept together, but because when Gilly says in what is, I think, a very tender moment,
I'd never do that to the father of my son.
the Night's Watch oath is to father no sons. And I think that even though Sam is not technically the boy's biological father, I think the reason the Night's Watch has that in their oath is because of the emotional bond between father and son.
And speaking of sons and dads, we're gonna see Daddy Tarly.
Big Daddy Tarly.
Big Daddy Tarly, and he's gonna be a dick.
If you forgot how much of a dick Randall Tarly is, he threatened Sam to take the black because he said if he didn't, he would go out hunting with him and kill him and tell his mom.
It was an accident.
What I'm curious about for Randall is to see his reaction to what I assume they will claim as Sam's bastard son. I wonder if fathering a son is something that will change Randall's opinion of Sam.
I could also see his dad, though, seeing this baby and Gilly as the worst kind of oath breaking you could do. I think Randall's gonna be a lot like Tywin in that anything that Sam does right, he's gonna find some way to flip it back around on him and make it a flaw.
The small council scene was great.
How'd you guys feel about the fart?
It was a funny way of demeaning Pycelle,
Yeah.
which I think is always entertaining. But it's curious to me that Pycelle's hatred for Qyburn seems to trump his loyalties, which were so firmly with Cersei before.
You could argue his loyalties were mainly for Tywin, and Kevin's the closest thing we have to Tywin now.
For anyone who just maybe doesn't remember, Kevin Lannister, the guy at the head of the small council, is Tywin's brother, Tyrion, Cersei, and Jaime's uncle, and Cersei tried to name him Hand of the King last season. He stormed off because he didn't approve of her appointments, like with Qyburn, but he's been there since season 1 alongside Tywin, always overshadowed by Tywin, because how can you not be? But now it looks like he has power, and it seems as though he really wants to just rule properly.
Kevin's always been a very interesting character for me because of living in that shadow of Tywin and what that has kind of done to him as a man. And I think that the way in which he's now ruling compared to Tywin is very interesting. Tywin was very reluctant to form alliances unless absolutely necessary. The alliance with the Tyrells was an opportunistic one that he was constantly working to subvert once he made it.
I am not about to hand her over to the Tyrells.
Kevin seems to be fully embracing it with Elena and Mace sitting on the council together. That's 2 Tyrells to 1 Lannister, which is something that both Jaime and Cersei seem to take huge umbrage with.
Mace looks like he's from the Lollipop Guild.
And all he does is
That was another extremely well-blocked scene, well-directed scene with the chairs and the way that they came in. Cersei and Jaime presenting kind of a united front against the other members of the council.
They can't be buddy-buddy this whole season. Why have them act as one person? I think they're supposed to serve as mirrors for each other. They're opposites.
It makes Jaime a less compelling character.
Yeah. I think he kind of gets absorbed into Cersei and isn't really his own guy anymore.
Their son Tommen is dealing with his own shit. That was one of my favorite scenes of the night.
Me too.
Yeah, I really liked that scene. I really liked the way that this episode as a whole dealt with the religions of Westeros. We saw the Lord of Light, the old gods north of the Wall, the Seven, and the many-faced god of death in Braavos, all kind of working in different ways in this episode. And I thought it was particularly interesting that the only kind of religion that didn't have any kind of magical association or didn't have any real power was the Faith of the Seven. We saw through, obviously, Jon, the flashbacks with Bran, and Arya's sight coming back, that the other kind of religions that we see in this episode have some power associated with them that is beyond human understanding. Whether it's magic or if there is some sort of actual divine intervention, we don't know. As far as we know, it's just magic, but there's power associated with those faiths. In the Faith of the Seven in King's Landing, it's all smoke and mirrors. The only power that the faith has comes from men believing that they have power. That's all just built on pillars of salt and sand, and it's gotta collapse. He's not that good of a manipulator. I mean, even though he manipulates Tommen,
I think that's just because Tommen's easy to manipulate, and Tommen's always looking for guidance on how to rule. I can respect Tommen's willingness to listen to other people and to actually heed their advice, but I think it's gonna get him killed sooner rather than later.
I thought that scene was so great because I really felt like he was invoking Lena Headey there. The key difference is that while he strolls in acting like Cersei with that confidence, he's so easily manipulated and he's so malleable, and then by the end of that scene you could tell that he was really buying what the Sparrow was selling.
for Dean Charles Chapman to go in against Jonathan Pryce in that scene and act head-to-head and hold his own that way.
It just goes to show that was a really good decision to recast Tommen. For the first 3 seasons, we had a younger actor, and then as the character grew in significance, they cast Dean Charles Chapman, who originally played a Lannister cousin who was in Robb's custody that was killed by Karstark. It all comes full circle, kind of.
I just want to say that it's really amazing. We watched the preview for next week and we were all sad there was no Bran. What? When does that happen?
But we will be going to the Iron Islands, and we'll also finally see the return of Peter Baelish. I am so excited because I happened to play him earlier in a sketch that we did, and that's why I have this stupid goatee.
I think it looks good.
I like it.
Thanks, guys. That'll all happen next episode, Book of the Stranger, and you can join us here when we discuss it next week. But until then, I'm James.
And I'm James.
I'm Chelsea.
And this has been What's on the Box? You must subscribe to our channel that has quality content.
I made all of these videos for you and you didn't subscribe.
I'm sorry.
Just subscribe. You will have all your friends subscribe to this channel without a doubt. Thanks, Pet.
When will you post the next video? Soon. The channel of practical folks. That's where you'll subscribe.